right, everybody, welcome to League Night, April 12th edition. We're really excited because tonight we're joined by, in studio, Christine Jennings. How's it going?
Hi, good. Thanks for having me.
We're really excited, and we're also joined by Josh, who was away last week. Josh, you're back. How's it going?
I am glad to be back. Glad to have Christine join us. This is going to be a good show.
I agree. Really looking forward to this. Christine, we're so happy to have you in the house. Let's talk really quickly about what happened at the Open at Tallahassee. Stacey Haas, by the way, her last name is in the name of the event, Tallahassee. That's spectacular for her first ever DGPT win. Congratulations to her. And interesting to note, thanks to Statmando, is that this is the quickest an FPO player has ever made it to a win on the Disc Golf Pro Tour stage. She did it in 618 days, beating out the former first ever to do it, Katrina Allen, with 50 something days. So congratulations to her. Also, Albert Tam, European player, the first European, look at that, bazooka.
Oh, I love it, yeah.
The first player since, European player since the Memorial in 2018 when Simon did it. So congratulations to him. Either of you have any reactions on these wins?
I mean, just in general, I didn't talk last week about Silver Series because I wasn't on the show, but this is what I love them for. I'm not going to elaborate, but congrats to Stacey, congrats to Albert. Really exciting to see some new faces getting a win.
That's
yes,
right.
For sure.
Yeah, so Christine, we're actually going to jump right over to it. I think you have a lot to offer us tonight, which is why we have you on the show. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. You are an FPO player, but you have comments, I'm sure, on MPO, FPO, it doesn't matter, but you are going to be able to bring us your perspective when it comes to these up-and-comers shining, especially this year. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Tell us about these up-and-comers and what you think about that.
Yeah. So speaking of Stacey Haas taking down Tallahassee, that was huge for her to start off her season and, quite honestly, her career. 2021 was her first year playing tons of events in the Open Division. She's only been playing for a few years total. And she's been to all the events so far this year, really immersing herself into the competition. And she's already picked up a Silver Series win. So huge congrats to her. And also, Valerie Mandujano is another not really an up-and-comer. So she's just really had a good start to the season, and she's always been relevant. But this year, she's finished at the top 5 at all of her events. First at Waco, second at Belton, fourth in Texas States, and second in Tallahassee. And then lastly, Kat Murch has also caught my eye. She's currently 5th in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings with nearly top 10 finishes so far this year.
Wow. And these are who we would consider not brand new to the scene, but realistically compared to the rest of the field or the majority of the field, they are. You look at Stacey Haas, as I mentioned, the quickest to do this, and she's only been playing in the FPO. Well, it's been a while, but she was playing Junior Worlds. Let's put it that way. She was playing Junior Worlds last year. That's something she's a newcomer for sure.
Yeah,
so,
man, I was scrolling back in the PDJ events as you like to do when you're researching a name that maybe you've heard, but you're not familiar with. And then you're like, I can only scroll so far before I see like recreation and junior events, which is truly amazing, right? That's actually a compliment to see where she's come. Yeah, Christine, there's so much happening in the FPO field. This is why I like it. I mean, Kat Murch, 5th in Pro Tour standings right now. She finished 14th last year, right? So like that, it's early yet. Anything could change. I might add like Holland Handley into the mix. She's 12th in Pro Tour standings, and listen to this, finished 42nd last year. Now, granted, she only played a few events, but that's kind of the point. And then I would sneak somebody in, maybe, but Macy Valadiaz, who we have seen before, limited events, only 2 this year, but it was 6th at Waco and 3rd at MCO. Quite honestly, it leaves me wanting more. I don't know what to make of that, but I think that could be somebody to pop also.
Definitely.
For sure. And we're talking about the newcomers, and there are a handful of them, or maybe 2 handfuls of them. But that means that some of the conversation has moved away from Paige Pierce. Let's talk about that. Paige Pierce isn't winning as much as we've come to be used to. But Christine, you're here to tell us that's okay. What's your take on that?
So everyone's just so used to Paige just dominating that now as the whole division becomes stronger, people just really seem worried that she's falling off. But listen, everyone, you guys just need to calm down because everything's fine. Paige is still third in the Disc Golf Pro Tour point standings. She finished second at LVC after making a mistake on the final hole, and mistakes happen. At Waco, she took sixth. And then following that, she won Texas States. So, in her words, I'm not out here playing because I have to. It means the world to me to be out here. So, to execute when it comes down to it and to push past what everyone's saying, I'm the only voice that matters and I need to love myself. And so she knows that people are talking, but I think that we can back off a little and just let her enjoy the fruits of her labor.
I think what's interesting here is people are talking about it because I think Paige used to make mistakes. She did. The difference was the field wasn't as strong. So a mistake, she was able to get away with it and still have these wins. Now the field
Mhm.
is right there chomping at her heels. When she makes the mistake, she doesn't get the win. And that's how it seems to me. Josh, do you feel similar?
Well, yes, I think what you said is true, but I'm more in line with, I think, the premise of what Christine is saying, which is it's not even that. Like, it's not as bad as anybody even is making it out to seem. So, to kind of jump a little bit on what Christine was saying, Paige has won 33%, 1 out of 3 of the events that she entered this year, and she came in second at another, right? So, you already mentioned Texas State's LVC and then Waco. But by comparison, Katrina Allen, who many other people would say is having like that, stellar year, which she is, but she's also only won 1/3 of her elite level events, also literally the same as Paige. The only difference is she has a first, second, and third, which bumps her average up slightly. But I'm with you, Christine. It is okay. In fact, I think it would be very reasonable to say Paige may have as good a year she's ever had. There's not enough to like know if that's not going to happen yet. So I agree. It's okay, everybody. Thank you for keeping us in line, Christine. We need it sometimes.
Yeah, and I want to say too, I think what's interesting is this may be a very positive change for Paige Pierce because not winning seems to be the fact that might be driving her. It might be that motivation where she says, I'm out here because I want to be, not because I
Mhm.
have to be. And I think that's driven by I want to be trying to win. Like I want that. Whereas before it started to maybe feel a little old. And that's crazy to say, right? It feels old to maybe win 5 world championships, but now she's starting to feel that fire again, it seems. So that's really awesome. But talking about feeling that fire, I think it'd be interesting for us to go ahead and move into this other topic right now, which is going to address the announcement by Heather Young pausing her tour. This was for an undetermined, in words from her mouth, undetermined amount of time off from disc golf where she is not playing at all. Christine, tell us what you think about this.
I'm upset because I'm a Heather Young fan and she's the sweetest girl. She's from Tennessee and I'm from Ohio. So we actually played a lot of local A tiers together before she actually went on tour. So I've seen her kind of grow into the player that she is. And so I'm really upset to see this, but I actually watched the interview with her yesterday and she I love her honesty about it, and she just said that she doesn't love it anymore, and she doesn't feel the fire that she used to wanna compete, and she said, "A good competitor comes from someone who loves the sport," and she just doesn't feel it anymore, and she mentioned that she doesn't wanna touch a disc for a while.
Yeah. Josh, how did you feel when you heard the news?
Yeah, I mean, so with Christine, maybe like kind of, I saddened from a disc golf standpoint, but honestly, 100% support. I think it's actually a really mature thing to do to look at the big picture. I mean, come on, it's a sport we all love. We want to see people flourish. There are people flourishing, but we need to also recognize that, like, hey, these are like life decisions. It's easy for me to sit back here and work a full-time job and feel stable and then root on people to say, yeah, go on tour, right? And commit your whole life to the sport. We have to allow players the space to figure that out. I do think it's interesting though, because as a sport surging, right? Like there is going to be some of this, it's harder to compete. So Heather Young with an elite level skill didn't have that great of a year this year so far in her events. Now that's a chicken or egg thing, meaning maybe she didn't do as well because she wasn't in love with the sport. But I think tour grind is a real thing. And I think as it
Mhm.
becomes tighter at the top, right? The lure of being a top player is real, but the challenge of actually doing it this year is probably an eye opener for more and more players. Um, and Matt, I don't know if this is like entirely right to do because I'm going to throw out some other names. I wonder, and this is highly personal. So like my point is I'm looking at people who have committed to the grind that I wonder if they're having an eye opener on how hard it is. And could we see this type of thing happen to other players? None of these players do I have any insight and I'm rooting for them and I hope they don't. But like I look down the board in both NPO and FPO and you see names like Benjamin Callaway, Nathan Queen, Deanne Carey. Zechariah Johnson, Vanessa Van Dyken, Colton Montgomery. These are players that we're all familiar on the names. They've had good years, but boy, that grind is getting long and the competition's getting harder. I hope we don't see that trend, but I support Heather Young. I think it sounds like she's made the right decision for her, and we would all be happy if she came back, but if she doesn't, right, we wish the best.
Yeah, and I want to bring in this side thought is Josh, it's not fully related. I think they're all intertwined, but fully related to competition performance, where they're ranking. Some of the names you listed might feel that way, but some players, some people on tour, it's just built in them to have that lifestyle of the grind, always changing,
Correct.
always moving. For Heather Young, in her interview that happened yesterday, it was interesting to note that she's like, I'm looking forward to getting like a normal job,
Hmm.
like to feel that normalcy that I'm not getting out there on tour. And I think she says that she's going to test that out to see if maybe that brings back her desire to like believe how cool is it that I'm able to play disc golf for a living. So she's young. She hasn't had that experience yet. It's kind of like blossoming and saying, I want to try other things. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because there's so many people who'd say, I want to go and be that pro disc golfer. So, different kind of reverse psychology there she's
Hmm.
trying for this, but we'll see how this plays out for her. And we, as you said, Josh, we wish nothing but the best for her. Um, with that topic wrapped up, we're going to move into our next segment, fan favorite, 2 minutes, everybody. Christine, we're really excited to have you. Here are the topics. We're going to put you up with a timer. We're going to see how we perform tonight.
Hmm.
Christine and Josh, let's get into the first topic here, which is the traveling of specifically European players. What do you think about this idea that the longer European players are in the US competing, that the better they perform? Christine, you get the floor tonight with topic number one.
Okay, so last year, Kristen Tatar proved that this was not the case. Like the longer that you're here, the better you get because she came in and won 4 out of her 6 events while she was here. Now, this year, though, Hannah Blomroos had a slow start at LVC, but then she's been firing ever since. So there's some like, it goes both ways, but I personally think overall that they all give themselves enough time to acclimate and they all arrive pretty quickly. They arrive like a week or two beforehand, especially with the whole quarantine thing. So they've had enough time to acclimate in terms of like schedule and, feeling things out to where I think they're just ready to compete and ready to go.
Okay. And can I ask, because I do not know your history, have you ever traveled internationally to play disc golf?
I have not.
Okay. I'm curious to that feeling of a different land, if you will. What does that bring to it besides
Right.
even just a jet lag? I don't know, but
Yeah.
Josh, I'm tossing it over to you. What's your take?
Yeah, so I mean, I've given this some thought. My answer you may want to call it a cop out, but here's the point. I
Always,
thought about
Josh.
digging into stats, right? And I would actually be really intrigued to do that a little bit more. But I want to tackle this from a simple, what I'm calling common sense approach. I don't think that this type of travel like must have an impact, meaning like it's not a definite factor. I think we have examples of that not being the case. Christine shared some, but I think it could have an impact. And just like many different factors influence many different types of players, right, on and off the course, because we're all different people, that I think it should be a consideration. We've talked about how comfortable you are. Think about accommodations, culture, language, travel, experience. That impacts physical and mental, right? And so I don't think this travel is something that you can just generally include in your calculus, but I think it should be a consideration. But I do want to ask here in an ending. Hey, if Macbeth and Wysocki and Pierce and Allen travel to Europe, are you not counting against them?
Okay. Interesting. And Josh, when you use words like calculus, I
Oh
have to
yeah.
believe that you're going for the fan votes. But all right, here we go into topic number two. This one is prompted by Drew Gibson making a social media post last week saying along the lines of, "Hey, I believe that I have it in me where I could finish in the number one ranked spot in the world by October." That's a pretty big statement. I think part of it he's believing in himself. The other part is he actually wants to put it out there and see what the audience, the fans think about that. So, with that in mind, let's talk about the players in whatever ranking list you want, whether it's DGPT point standings, whether it's other ranking systems. In your mind, how far down a list in those ranking systems can you go and say by the October, I think they could have a first place? Let's go with Josh first on this one.
Yeah. So first to react to Drew. He has talked about before about how talking about things, being positive, kind of willing things into existence is a big deal for him. And so I think that's what he's doing. And so good for him. But right. So this is basically asking, if I look down, in my case, the world rankings, how far down do I scroll before I would not be willing to say it's possible for that player to actually finish in number one?
All right, give
And
it
so,
to us.
yeah. So for me, anything below, really quick, fourth place would make for a truly incredible story. So I'm starting high. Right? Anything below fourth. But here's the deal. In FPO, I'm going down not that far. I'm only going down as far as seventh place, which is currently Missy Gannon, few others players above her. The most compelling potential, in my opinion, is in sixth, which is Valerie Mandahano. Right? That wouldn't blow me away, but it would, think about it. That would still be crazy. I'll finish in MPO. I think it's the top 5 who are true in contention, but I would go as far down as 12th place. And you ready? That's Nico LaCastro. Holy smokes, would that be a crazy story? But I actually think I would put it in the category of possible. Don't expect it to happen, but this does include Drew Gibson. So, Drew, I'm rooting for you.
Good. Christine, those are some impressive takes over there, but I'm interested in your opinion. What do you have?
Wow. So I think for FPO, I actually look at Pro Tour standings. So FPO is such a tight, they're so close in the top. So top 15 is how far I went.
Okay.
And that actually ends at Ella Hansen.
Yeah.
But my pick was Cat Merch.
Okay. Okay. So Cat Merch is someone you feel like could pull it off. How about, did you go to MPO or are we stuck on FPO?
I didn't look at MPO.
Okay. That is fine. So here's my question to you. What would it take for a player in the last 10 seconds here from either of you? What would it take for a player to pull this off way down at the bottom? If they won every event from here on out, how far down could you go? I mean, would 50th place be able to take the number one?
Yes.
They won from here on out. Yeah.
Like, yeah. The answer is yes, but in my commentary, like how unlikely,
Yes.
but honestly, I'm rooting for it because talk about an epic story. But yeah.
That was good. I almost stumped you both. I said, I set up a really elaborate question. Okay, topic number 3. We're heading into the first of 4 scheduled majors for this 2022 year. There's been a lot of talk about this 4th major. Now we're here. Just tell us generally what you think about it. We're talking more about it later, but give us your general thoughts right now, Christine.
Yes, I go first. Okay, first off, I'm super excited. And I think that this major complements all of the other ones very nicely in terms of location and timing. So with the 2, European Open and Worlds, they're only a month apart and they're kind of towards the middle of the season. And then we have USDGC, which is at the end of the season. So what better than now to have another major early in the season? Also, WR Jackson is one of my favorite courses, but it's a wooded course. When you go to Emporia for Worlds this year, obviously that's a wide open course. And then European Open is just a challenge of a whole nother country. And then USDGC is just a unique experience of its own. So I think it's perfect in every way.
Oh, perfect in every way, Josh.
Okay. So we're not going to have too much of a debate here, which is awesome for once. In fact, I had a note to say here. I can't believe it, but it seems to be fairly clear consensus on this in the disc golf world, which rarely ever happens, in my opinion, right? You want majors to be limited because it increases their prestige, right? Like that's an important thing. You don't want to add too many, but too few doesn't give you the right balance. And you always wonder, right? Like that one thing in the middle of the year, you're like, is there an anomaly? So you want more than that. I agree with you. We've had 3 for a while. And the last 2 years were really wiped out with wacky schedules. We've only had 3 total majors in the last 2 years. And this year we're going to have 4 majors this year. And like you said, a spring major is refreshing. I mean, I am ready to go here in April, summer majors, an international major, and a fall major. Perfect mix. I can't wait for it. I do think, to figure out the balance of non-rotating majors and which ones can rotate around is something still to probably play around with. But similar to you, I think a few more tweaks can be done. I'm at my happy place with majors. Let's, move on.
I love it. Let's move on. Time is up. Those were some fantastic takes. Let's go ahead and move into our final segment, the Champions Cup. Really excited to bring this up. We just wrapped up our 2-minute topic there with the Champions Cup. Let me see here. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I've got a lot of buttons I can press, and I'm just having fun pressing them.
Just press the red one. No, I'm just joking. I have no
All
idea.
right, so we're going to be talking about W.R. Jackson, okay? Specifically starting there, Christine, I heard you in your 2 minutes say this is one of your favorite venues, properties, disc golf courses. Tell us why that is and what fans can expect to see when it relates to the course.
It's my favorite course because the course is wooded, but it has fairways. Like, think of Idlewild, but with wider gaps.
Ooh.
And you have really good footing no matter where you are. So they have really great par fours and par fives, but you have to really, think about your placement shots, really hit the gaps. And of course, if you miss your gap, you're going to go into the rough. But like the fairways are like 80 feet wide, like actual fairways. And I don't know, it's just something about it so magical.
It's so magical. So this is your favorite course. Tell us a little bit more. Is it all woods? I know we've seen some of this in the past, but never a major in well, I don't want to say never, but this is a long time coming. Is it all woods, Christine?
It is all woods. I know there's like one hole where on the MPO hole, it shoots from the outside out of the woods from the open into the woods. But other than that, playing as an FPO tee pad, everything's literally in the woods. But like I said, you every shot makes you play a really good placement shot first. And then, of course, to be able to get your birdie, you have to be able to throw another great shot to the basket. And it's a really good mix of all kinds of angles. So like hyzer flips, forehands, turnovers, like all of it's there. And it's so pretty.
Okay, and with this being your favorite course, I'll put you on the spot, but what do you think is going to be a great score? I'm not asking necessarily for what your scores have been there, although maybe you have
Ooh.
some hot rounds. Are we talking FPO should be shooting under par significantly, or is it tough?
I think they should be shooting significantly under.
Okay. And I would expect that we're going to see that as well from MPO with the battles that we've seen with the great players out there. Josh, let's take it over to the strength of the field. Is everybody going to be there? What are we looking at when it comes to competition for this first major? I mean, I would expect and hope that we would see all the talent there, but there's still question marks. I mean, Eagles registered, but is he going to be there? We're not sure. Josh, tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been consistent on this. Anybody who's heard me on this show or even other media knows that I treat events important when the players view them as important. And this is no difference. So it's a major. And yes, everybody's there. I don't know specifically on Eagle. He's registered. I haven't heard anything otherwise. But look, by design, this event, I mean, the Champions Cup, it's designed to pull from the pool of best players out there, and it only limits the field to MPO at 100 and FPO at 40. So there's some prestige built in, invite only. This is like past elite tier winners, major winners, some other top tier events. And guess what? We end up with an impressive field when you do that. It's going to be the best competition we've seen this year, in my opinion. You already heard about being on an awesome disc golf course. A couple other things here. If we look back at the last big events at this venue, it included 2017 World Championships, 2018 Hall of Fame Classic, 2019 Hall of Fame Classic. So there is history here. And check this out. If you look at the names from the podiums at all those events I just mentioned, all of those players are returning to this event with the exception of Valerie Jenkins and Johnny McRae. So not only do we have the best players current state, but we literally have those who have proven they can play on this course. They're all names you would recognize. Matt, look, no one's going to debate the validity of this win when it's said and done. It is not a major in name only, which I was concerned with at one point, right? At this point, the players have spoken. They have also already crowned this as a major in their eyes, which means they're pushing for the win. Matt, did you know that for the last decade, Paul McBeth has won 50% of the majors he's competed in, and Paige Pierce has won 51% of the majors she's competed in? They're both there. This is going to be a tough field.
Yeah, that's a great statistic, and you'd want that on your side. But the times are changing, as we talked about, these up and comers and the new players, and I think it's going to be fantastic competition. Speaking of which, whoever takes down this event, I want to address just a minute here. Imagine with me if you were the winner of the first ever United States Disc Golf Championship or the first ever Pro World Championships or any other major you want to list. Imagine if you had that title. At the time, the prestige wasn't there for USDGC and others, But as time went on, to be able to say, I was there and I have the first ever title, that is a big, big deal. And as you said, Josh, they're starting to own this idea that this is a major. I better buckle up and get ready right now because it's going to pass me by if I don't treat this seriously like it is. So for the winner, it's going to be a big, big deal. The history's not there, but they're making history. And that is an amazing thing to be able to do in any sport. I mean, just go to any sport and say the first time ever at a major. That would be a big deal. I think I've made my point there. The curious thing that I have in mind is what does this mean for the player, but also into the future of this season? Does it set their expectations up in the wrong place? Does it put them there where now they feel like, wow, I've done something so spectacular. How am I going to keep up with that? Now, if it's Paul Macbeth, it's Ricky Wysocki, I don't think they're going to struggle very much with that. There's probably a list of other names, Paige Pierce, Katrina, go down the list. But if it's a player that has not won a big event like this, is it going to mess them up? I'm just curious in your reaction. How do you think they might handle that? For instance, James Conrad won Worlds. That's fantastic. His first ever big. The rest of the year, and nothing. Now, great player, but like, how does this play into it? Do we expect more from this player for the rest of the season? The winner of this event, do we expect more? Christine, what do you think?
I feel like just winning this solidifies a great start to the year, and it's going to feel good no matter what, right? Because it's a major. I almost feel like you kind of said with James Conrad, if it's, I guess no matter who it is, you won a major, and it's almost like you can take a breather because
Hmm.
I feel like like everyone has a goal of wanting to win a major. Granted, it's not Worlds. That's probably one of the best ones that you could win. But like Stacey Haas even said with her Silver Series win, she's like, one of my goals for this year was to take top 5 at a big Pro Tour event. And she's like, I already checked it off my list. And so like she's done for the year and like moving on to bigger and better things, right? And so I feel like it's kind of the same thing.
Josh, any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, well, I think that's a real consideration, but that kind of maybe proves the point, Matt, that you were suggesting in your question, which is, for example, do you think if Ricky Wysocki, who's won past majors, wins this, does he sit back and relax, or is he thinking that's step one in a major sweep this year? Right. So, like, for him, it's just like,
Absolutely.
okay, mark it
Right.
down, focused on the next. Right. Whereas somebody who wins there first, that may be an interesting reaction. They don't have the experience, right, to push
Mhm.
forward and say, like, all right, so what's the next one? All right, Pro Worlds, right? Laser focused on that.
Hmm.
So I think any normal person, I kind of say that tongue in cheek, but would have a hard time after winning this because you are going to relax and celebrate.
Well,
I think your
Mhm.
most driven performers are not going to. And so what intrigues me, Matt, is if there is a new player who wins the major and they don't fall off, that tells you something about their makeup. And so that'll be a really intriguing thing to watch.
I am getting goosebumps. I am excited because if we have a fantastic storyline, and I think we will, no matter how it plays out,
Sure.
there's going to be a fantastic storyline for this first ever major winner, the Champions Cup. So let's turn it to what are we going to look forward to? I'm going to bring you right now what I think you should look forward to: the players who perform well in the past in the woods. I'm going to leave that up to you. I could list a number of names, but players who play well in the woods, obviously, we're going to look at, thanks to Christine telling us wooded players are going to excel here. But, and this is the but I think you should look out for, can they hold on the consistency of these 1050 rated players or the highest rated FPO players who proven consistency over time? So you have great wooded players, but then you have consistency over 4 rounds. I don't know which one's going to win out, but watch for an early lead out of those wooded players and then buckle up for the rest of the show. Christine, what are we looking for?
So I just have a thought of Valerie Monduhano. So I'm curious as to if she's going to be able to keep up her momentum because, contrary to what you said, she's been playing really well on the West Coast, which has been pretty wide open, and she took second at Tallahassee, which started to mix in some gaps that you have to hit. But now she's just straight going into the woods, and I'm curious to see if she's going to be able to carry her momentum.
Carry her momentum. Josh, what do you think?
I'm going to answer this slightly differently because there are so many storylines. But here's what I actually want to tell people to watch for. Just enjoy the prestige of a major on a beautiful course. Because look, it's possible that not everything is going to go exactly the way you as a fan want it to, right? There's going to be some communication or some course faux pas, some coverage challenge, or your favorite player's not performing well. But honestly, here's what I want you to do. Don't focus on that. Focus on the positive here. It's a spring major at a beautiful course, the world's best players, all who care deeply about winning, playing one of our favorite sports. Take a deep breath. Ready? Sit back, relax, take it all in. Let's cement another amazing event in the history of our sport. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. Hey, these are all great takes. I hope our audience appreciates that, and we're excited, and we believe that you will be as well. Tune in. The Disc Golf Network and others will be producing a whole bunch of post-round coverage. Josh, let's go ahead and tell them how they can watch here the Champions Cup.
Yeah, so if you're watching this live, we're only 2 days away. This is a 4-round event starting on Thursday. You can see FPO coverage begins at 9:30 a.m. We're talking Eastern Standard Time. MPO coverage kicks off in the afternoon at 2:30. So sorry, if all those who are employed during the day, you're going to have to take some time off to catch this coverage on Thursday and Friday. And then, of course, finishing up on Saturday and Sunday. Should be an awesome weekend of disc golf.
It will be fantastic. And I want to say this, I know we talk a lot about pro disc golf, but shout out to the Missouri Tigers, both the men's and the women's division, taking down the National Collegiate Championships this past weekend. That must feel fantastic for you and the representation of your school. Christine, we loved having you tonight. Josh, thanks for coming back.
Yes.
Until next week, everybody, we'll catch you out there. Have a great week.